Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, 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 money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar.
Another great episode of DubCast coming down the pike. As a quick reminder, twice a month we'll hop in the studio to talk to some of the smartest, most interesting handicappers in the sports industry. Today is no exception. We are thrilled to be joined by the one, the only, we know him as John, but you probably know him as just Payouts. John, say hello to the listeners at home.
What's up, guys? I think it's the first time people are seeing my face, so happy to disclose it.
You're kind of a comic book hero, like all Twitter handicappers are. You know, people see the logo and the avatar, but we've gotten a ton of feedback. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know XYZ was a human being, much less, he had a backstory and a face. So hopefully you'll get some interesting feedback on this. And we're also joined in studio for people who are listening and not on YouTube by the one, the only Easy Doyle. Easy will be helping me out, facilitate conversations, and is a huge sports fan and very much at the heart of kind of our content efforts at Dub Club. So Easy, please as well say hello to everybody at home.
That was a very kind intro. Thank you, Lou. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. God, we got a great capper today with John, and so just excited to kind of get it going and see what we can learn.
So, John, I kind of like to start all these interviews the same way. Like, as I said, to your followers, you're kind of just Payouts. But there's a guy behind the story. You've got an incredible backstory. You're a United States Marine. How did you get into this crazy world that is sports handicapping, and kind of what has led you to be the capper we know as just Payouts?
Yeah, man. So I think I got into it like I probably assume most people got into it, where your friend finds someone that's a local bookie and wins some money on a college game, and is so excited they need to tell everybody about it. And then next thing I know, me and all my neighbors and my buddies are talking to this guy we don't know, and on this website that doesn't really work, and trying to win some money somewhere. And then, like most people, we lost because we didn't know what we were doing. And then comes in like all the angle plays, right? So like, everyone is now upset that they've lost money. The thrill is there, but the excitement so much is not, because you're paying somebody every week that you don't enjoy. And that part sucks. And then
Yeah, we've all been there.
Hopefully for not too long. But really, then people started trying to play angles. And as it became like more serious, so and so knows somebody on XYZ football team, and they're gonna go crazy this game, and we're gonna play that. And somebody has an inside scoop on a college basketball game, and we want that. And then obviously those don't work because they're mostly BS. And next thing you know, someone's following someone on Twitter. And so really where it came in for me was that I think my buddies and I actually got in a pretty decent hole, and just went like all in following this guy. I had no idea who he was, anything about him. I wasn't even the one following him. I didn't have Twitter. But somebody would just send screenshots of everything that he was advising to do, and just blind tail. And it ended up that we all would lose even more at the end of the day. And I was so upset at, one, my lack of investigation. I wish I would have done some research in this guy. The fact that I was just investing money without doing any of my own research just seems stupid. You don't buy a stock just because you're staring at the stock market. You buy a stock because you look at the background and think about where it's going to go. And not that I necessarily felt a sense of obligation, but I just thought I could come on top of this thing. So in my own free time, I started looking at what I could do. Started playing around with a lot of different sports, and uniquely, the one that I really set upon was soccer. And it's very interesting because for most people, most handicappers on Twitter, they don't go near the sport. They don't touch it. I've heard from many that it's arguably one of the hardest to handicap besides MMA fighting. But I like it. I like the stats. I like the reads. I played it a long time as a kid, and I just got to know it pretty well. and I feel like the market's, at least in the U.S., is relatively untapped. Most people don't have the patience to watch a soccer game, even though I find them exciting. Um, and because of the what I would consider to be lower volume, right? Like an NCAA basketball game is going to get more volume than the typical soccer match happening at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. Um, because of that, I think that there's some more opportunities for exploits, um, and that's really how I got into it, man. I started looking, started trying to help my friends. It worked, um, and then I thought I could broaden it a little bit by hopefully not being what the guy that I followed was, um, and it's worked so far.
Super interesting. Um, so there's a lot there to unpack. I think the idea of soccer as a place to find value, because there's not a ton of volume and the lines aren't quite as sharp, is super interesting. But, of that same accord, a lot of folks aren't familiar with playing soccer and the kinds of bets even that you'll see in a given match. I see on your feed all different kinds of player props, sides, totals, corners. Like, I'm not a soccer guy, so I'm lost when I'm looking at your recaps. So what advice do you have for people who are trying to get familiar with the sport and just kind of the crash course 101, 120-second commercial on what actually goes into your prep? Because clearly you're like what I would call a fundamental investor in terms of actually trying to find value as opposed to playing lines or fading public or some other more like trend betters. So what goes into your process? What are you looking at? What are the different kinds of bets people should be aware when they look at your feed?
So now I'm going to try and unpack your question.
Is there enough in there for you?
There's definitely enough in there for me. So let's start with advice to people. And what I'm going to say, and what I say to all my new people is, you got to ask. And if that's not asking me, then you got to ask Google. And quite frankly, a Google search will give you most of the insight that you need. It'll tell you what brings upon a corner and how it's graded. It'll tell you what everything from shots on goal is to who's starting that day to what it means for a team total versus a game total, and everything in between. So the first step is just ask, get that explanation. I've never not responded to a message asking me what the difference between TT and just an O is. So find someone. And obviously, we keep group chats on Twitter and stuff, and that's a great resource to go to. Now, as far as my process, which I believe is the second part of your question, first thing I got to do is start with teams I know. It is physically impossible to know every team, every occurrence that's going on every day. And that's one of the reasons I 90+% of my wagers are on soccer. Because of how many teams are out there and how many different countries and everything like that. It takes so much time to know as many teams as possible, know the players, know the coaching staff, know the weather in that country that day, that I can't really double dip into something else. And so you start by just like favoriting your teams and seeing who they're going up against, and then you check who's healthy, and you make sure that once everything's in order, you go to the opponent's side and you do the same thing there. Then you go and I'm looking at previous matchups. I'm looking at how they've been playing recently. I'm looking at how they're playing under certain weather conditions. I'm seeing, like today was a perfect example. I took first half corners for Liverpool, and I did that instead of goals because they didn't have all their primary starters in. Salah and Maine weren't playing. They just had Jota in the starting lineup, and because their subs were getting reps, I knew those subs were hungry for goals, and they got some. And so there might have been some inconsistency there, but I at least knew that they would want to try. They would want to fire. And that was the reason why I looked at the corners market. It hit in 20 minutes. I think that's something that a lines maker doesn't have the time to go into. And it is a feel for one, both knowing the team that is Liverpool, as well as their opponent. And two, taking the time to see just pre-match who they're playing, what it's probably going to look like, etc. And the other thing is you can't just stop it at the base levels. And this is also my pitch to kind of get off of your local book, where you have more than just a established point spread and a single over under, because those lines can be sharp. That's perhaps all they know, and I think that you'll find in 90% of games, you're going to come really damn close to those spreads in soccer and those totals. If it's over 2.5, it's probably going to be either 2 or 3, and that's a real gamble. Um, the rest of the stuff, there's 120 plus bets per soccer game that I can go into getting off of my local bookies website, and expanding that upon an established book with more exploits. And no one has the time to go into all of those. And so that's where like the value comes in. The full game corners for the Liverpool today were minus 300 at 8.5, but I got half of that number for a reasonable bet at minus 130 for the first half. And that was a wonderful exploit to take advantage of. So you can't stop with just what's on the surface. You can't stop without scrolling through those tabs, taking a little bit of extra time to find where they go. The same goes into like cards for a team. You kind of got to know what's going on like with them. The team I bet yesterday, their head coach is Ukrainian, and he's not with the team, but he is in Ukraine, like literally fighting right now. I knew that team was fired up,
Wow.
and I didn't have a corners line or a cards line for that game because it was from Moldova. But what I did have was knowing that they were going to at least win that match. And once again, the spread wasn't the value; it was just for them to score the goal. And for that reason, there's so much more to go into than just that base layer. So I kind of hope that answers your question. But I mean, for each match, I'm spending. I mean, if it's a tough matchup and I'm really trying to get a read on it, I can spend 1 to 2 hours just looking at the numbers for a match. Sometimes I got to rewatch whenever I go into big tournaments, Champions League. I pull up their like recent 2 or 3 games, and all night I have 4 screens in front of me right now. I have a 5th one I can hook up, and you just see things rolling all the time, so that you really get the feel for them. That's how it works, man. That's the operation. It's half knowing, it's half numbers, and it's all time.
Oh, that was just incredible. I mean, you offered so much analysis right there with just for a guy that doesn't follow soccer. I mean, we were talking to Lou about it, and it's like, that means so much in terms of like looking for us. It's something I can get into now again with all this expertise following. If I'm to follow your picks. Mm-hmm. I got to say one of my favorite bets that you put up recently was just this like Hoffenheim heater. That's what I like to call it. And it was just you went Hoffenheim money line, Hoffenheim both teams to score, then money line with the over, then money line with both teams to score. And I was like, what is he doing? But what do you find in that value? Why are you picking a game so heavily? What was it about Hoffenheim in that game where you were just like, God, I want to roll with them, all across the board?
So essentially, and I've been doing this a lot recently. I've been really trying to focus on throwing out live bets. You're kind of like forcing the hand of the bookmaker, because they can't like hold that line away from you as time ticks down. And this is where soccer is like really, really unique to exploit, unlike like other sports, because the scoring typically is not so constant that you can bet something is going to come, and you can see the opportunities as it's approaching. And that's one of the things I love about soccer stats. You can see, I'm looking at things like not just ball possession and not just shots versus shots on target, things like attacks and the number of those that are converted to dangerous attacks. And just watching the game simply. One thing most people don't know is that like looking at your phone doesn't tell you the whole story, because you can shoot the ball and it can go very close to the goal, but that might not be judged a shot or a shot on target. If it's not graded as such. But if I'm watching it and I know that they've actually got double the amount that this app is showing right here, but all the book has to use is this app, or these stats that are graded by whoever's on the field, then they're missing some of the picture. And the reality is that they can't hold a team at the same opening value to win when there's 20 minutes left, when there's only half a game left, and they're not winning yet. So it's all about that potential. In that game in particularly, I watched what I thought should have been like a really a 2-1, 3-1 halftime score that just wasn't. And that was just like an exploit point right there. So I was already on Hoffenheim pre-match, but typically when I play teams pre-match and it's volatile, I like to go the safer route, and I'll take them to win or draw. That's one of the things people see a lot in my profile that some people don't like because they don't like parlays, but really you're just parlaying two very safe options. Um, in that case, I took them to win or draw. They went outright. It was fine. Um, but now when I saw momentum, I saw chances, and then you can see like the team itself. If they're shutting down, if they're getting frustrated, that's not something you want to dive into. If they're getting fired up and they feel that coming and the fans feel that coming, you have to like watch with volume when you watch these games. Because in Europe, the fans mean so much in their presence. And it's not just like cheering when there's a goal. I mean, they'll start seeing national anthems and team anthems and like certain things that are specific to their city or their country or whatever it is. France is actually really good at it. I don't love France soccer. I do touch it sometimes, but those teams like have lifeblood, and those fans, I mean, 15 minutes in, will just start singing. Um, Same thing goes on in Germany all the time, man. You'll see the underdogs come out on top just because their fans will start like belting this amazing anthem and start going crazy, and that will just feed this team. Um, so, but I mean, there's no stat for sound volume in the stadium. There's no stat for the atmosphere that's taking place. And like I said, you're strong handing the book right there because you're seeing it. They can't grade it. It's not a number, and that's all the book can use. So that's really where it gets into feeling. And I think that's one of the biggest assets is being able to take all those sort of things into account. You can bet your ass if a team starts singing an anthem, I'm looking at them like as they go right there.
Play with the
there's a lot in
emotions.
there.
I love it.
Yeah, exactly. You get access because you're so disciplined with the way that you consume soccer content to, like you said, data that if you're just crunching numbers is untouchable to a sports book. With our Dub Club hats on now, how has that benefited your subscriber? Because they're getting these plays in real time, and as you're seeing something on screen 1 or 4 and pushing it out, that's something, see a text, go to a book. Like, what's the kind of feedback you've gotten? Because I feel like your approach, which is like very conducive to placing wagers in game or just like reading the room of a given stadium, I feel like it's perfect for this specific delivery method.
Before I answer this question, I do want a Dub Club hat, and I don't have one yet.
It's in process, yeah.
Okay.
Hat
But to get
first, tattoo second.
I'm with you. Lewis, if you get one, I'll get one. You just pick the spot. So to answer
Deal.
your question, the best feedback I've gotten is getting away from the Twitter clutter. It is, I would just say it's pretty much inevitable to remain on Twitter and not have your followers increase at some point in some way. And then you're kind of like sorting out through, I mean, I'm a consumer just as I am, a content creator. And I have my notifications on for certain people. I still like to bet on basketball sometimes. I don't know shit about basketball. I do know shit, but I'm not handicapping it. And so I'm still taking what my buddy's posting. And it gets to a point where like it is. I mean, my phone is almost always on. My screen time is disgusting, but that's because really it's lit up with these notifications that are coming through. And then you imagine that as a paying subscriber to somebody. And one of the biggest frustrations I used to get is like I didn't see the play, and I don't hear that anymore. Because when you get a text, you probably have your phone buzz in a separate location, make a separate noise. Your watch will ring too, and it's just something that like you are inherently drawn to look at that is off of that feed. It's a different color, it's a different app, it's built in, and that's I mean the people deserve that are paying for it, right? So if I was posting on whatever it be a live play or just a quick one, and the guys can't see it because there's so many other things happening at one time, that sucks, man. I mean, especially when you get into like the evening hour around 7 o'clock or so, and there's 100 college basketball games, everyone's posting something, and it's almost inevitable your tweet's gonna get lost in that. So to be able to maneuver them off of that platform, I only have gotten positive feedback on, and if Dub Club wasn't already great in itself in the other ways, that's specifically one that is really, really good.
Yeah, I think that was awesome. I think some of the listeners know also that you are a military man. So, obviously with Dub Club, it's probably helped you find some more time. But being in the military, how have you found time to be a capper, and maybe how has that changed over the last few months as you've incorporated Dub Club into kind of your process?
Yeah. So first of all, with time, it's been amazing. I struggled heavily, like managing a full, um, VIP status and all the subscribers and the payments and taking people off and putting them on and blocking people on this page and adding them on this page, and it just got disgusting, man. So to get those hours of sleep back every night is like really, really nice. And I am a night owl. I do my stuff at night, and just being able to know that I don't have to do anything else besides my craft is so beneficial. Now, with regards to the rest of it, um, it's tough. I think it's tougher than most, especially when I have friends that do this full time. And there have been times. Actually, I thought my page almost ended last year, almost a year ago, because I was just getting started. I was coming off a really, really, really hot streak in the Euro tournament, and I was still free at that point, and I just launched VIP. And of course, when you're coming off and you have this great record, there's a ton of people that join and all this interest. So I have all these people who join, and then like 2 days later, I got orders that I was going on a 2-month training for the summer, and I wasn't gonna have internet, wasn't gonna have my phone, and I just had all these people send me money, expecting a service, and I thought that was like gonna be the collapse. I thought it was gonna be refunding, and that was over, and leaving Twitter for 2 months would just be the end of it. And then I said, like, please understand, guys, and I am very sorry about this, but because of, this obligation first, I got to go for a little bit. I promise to make it right, and I will make sure that you're all done right. Bear with me, and if you choose to have a refund, I'll give it to you or whatnot. I think of the couple hundred people I had subscribed, maybe 3 people asked for a refund, and the rest of them just said, we're ready for when you get back, man. Thank you so much. And that aspect's really been amazing. There are some days where I have to tell my people I can't do it today. I'm either doing XYZ over the weekend. I had to go take care of somebody today, and y'all need to know that that's my first priority, my first obligation. I got to be up super early for XYZ or I have a formation at this time. And that's why I kind of push the military presence so that people have that understanding in the back of their mind, ready to go. And never once have I gotten negative feedback on that. No one's ever been upset because I had to go do whatever. So it's okay. It's tough, but it's okay.
Epic. I mean, that's an incredible story, and I think so. The fact that you had 3 people out of hundreds, it's just a testament to people being decent people, but B, I think it's a testament to like how much value you really provide. Like, A, you're doing an insane amount of research. B, you're providing really exhaustive write-ups and kind of getting people underneath the hood of what goes into a given play. How do you think about using your analytical plus kind of your writing skills to create this premium experience for people? Like, what's the balance of just finding the value versus communicating the value, etc.? That's something that I always find super interesting, because some guys are very focused on just marketing or just doing write-ups. Other guys just have a model and then it spits something out and they push it out. So what's the right balance for you and why?
I think that it comes with, one, time, and 2, a little bit of discipline of not just you, but of your following, and them viewing you doing that. So one of the hardest things to do on Twitter, when people are paying you for plays, is to not post plays. People typically get very upset when you have days that there are no action, because they want constant stimulation. And I understand that totally. And so I'll always make sure on a day where I don't have it to explain why. And if it's not for a military purpose, then it's because I didn't see value somewhere. I didn't like anything, and you have to look at it as an investable opportunity. And so that communicating that helps to discipline your subscriber base, and discipline yourself as well. So that's why I think writing is very important, because it shows that when you do decide to select something, and showing them that it's not done blindly, it's not done in vain. You didn't take a team just because they're a minus 300 favorite. Or if you are taking a bet of value, and I consider most value bets in soccer to be like plus money, you're explaining why. Because long term, it's an investment opportunity. For example, if you're taking all the live plays I'm posting, there's a 0% chance that every single one will hit. But typically, I'm taking them at something where you're getting more money back than you invest, and because there's potential for something. And some of the things I'll say are like what I previously explained. The fans are singing right now. This place is buzzing, and I feel it coming. The team looks primed. The stats aren't reflecting it, and I know this is going to happen. Or I can look at stuff like the average time a goal is scored. I was looking at a team in Austria today, and 54% of their goals are scored in the last 20 minutes of the game. So this team starts off pre-match at minus 150. That's not terribly out of range or anything, and like maybe I could go and touch them. But if I wait till minute 65, there's a chance I may have lost that value if they scored. But if they haven't, and betting on them to score is now plus 2 or 300, that's a spot that you would find value in and look at, but then explain why. Hey guys, 9 out of 10 times this is going to hit. So I'm going to put some money here right now, and we're going to hope for the best. And if it doesn't, we're going to come back next time and do the exact same thing. And that's the other really important part about handicapping, is to make sure that just because you get burned one time on something, to make sure that that's not the end of it.
I just love the way that you use like investment and value language. Like it's so refreshing. In this crazy like world where everything's like hype and marketing, to talk about, in very simple terms what this really is, which is a fun way to hopefully generate passive income.
I mean, that's what you're doing when you find a capper, right? Like you don't just see somebody and then see some suspected numbers and then just blind trust and give them your money. You don't do that with a stockbroker or advisor either, financial advisor either. You don't do that with anything. If you're going to buy a TV, you go look at the TV and the ratings and how it's performed and how many times it's blown up inside the house versus, how many years the other people have on theirs. So, I just think it's so important to at least take into account like that part of it. And to be honest, like my close following of like other cappers on Twitter are all very closely aligned in this regard as well. And I think it's good.
Yeah, honestly, one of the things I think I find most impressive about the way that you kind of go through your process of creating these slates is, when you say you're a soccer guy, there's so much that goes into soccer because there's so many leagues, right? It's not just the MLS. It's, maybe for us it's the MLS, but it's so well-rounded in Europe with, you mentioned Austria, you mentioned France, you mentioned Hoffenheim, right? So how do you find value, again, in those leagues? Are there certain leagues that you find more value in because of, again, maybe going back to those fans, the emotion of the stadiums, or, is it kind of spread out all over the board?
I think I said at the beginning, you have to start with your teams, right? So I might not know, I can know some leagues inside and out. I know the EPL forwards and backwards, and it is still arguably the toughest league to invest in. I know the MLS extremely well, and that one's a little bit better, but I mean it's still a tough league to invest in. And the big leagues, it's a little bit easier to do that. I know Germany very well. France, I'm not that big on, but you still got to know it. But then it's the other ones that you can start looking towards. And that's why I say teams and not so much leagues, because you can't know 20 leagues inside and out from all these countries, but you can know how teams perform and teams' records and pay attention to them. And then the majority of your research that day is on their opponent. And again, today was another good example of that. There's a team I know in Netherlands very well. That's PSV. I know several teams in Netherlands. I love that league. But I know PSV very well. I don't know their opponent as much. Right, the Go Ahead Eagles. They're not one of my favorite teams. They're not on my radar. They did come on my radar because they burned me last week by beating Ajax somehow. And I guess like that's kind of how you got to do it. You watch teams. It's impossible to watch leagues. On a given Sunday, there's like 8 EPL matches, and 4 of them are going on at the same time. And try as I might to do all of that, it's very difficult to be able to consume every single thing. And of course, there's a lot of like recaps and whatnot of it, but you got to pay attention to the ones that you're most focused on. Another good one today was Southampton versus West Ham. I have bet Southampton every single week that they have played in every single game in some form or fashion because I'm watching them every single week when they play, and I've made money on them every single week when they play because West Ham is it's a brand name. People are betting on them because they're a better known team, like with a better name. Southampton's a better team. Same thing goes on yesterday with like Leicester and Burnley. People are going to bet Leicester just instantaneously because it's got the name of Leicester, and Burnley supposedly sucks. And like, sure, Leicester did win, but there's value in knowing that Burnley has a really strong offense. And so, yeah, I can't claim to watch every single thing from every league or from around the world. I don't know if you guys are familiar. There's usually like 1,600 to 2,000 soccer matches every day across something like 200 leagues in any given 24-hour period. And it is always going on, to include Japan and China and Australia overnight and everything else. And you can only expand your reach, your breadth so far. So I know where mine is. I know my spots. I'll use Moldova again. I don't watch all of Moldovan soccer. I don't care to watch all of Moldovan soccer. I know my one team there, and I love my team there, and I will bet my team there, and my research will come on their opponent. Serbia is another great example. My favorite team in the world is from Serbia. I take Partizan in some way every single time they play, and 19 out of 20 times it will be the same bet, and it will make me money. So I don't need to watch all the rest of the Serbian league to know what Partizan has to offer me. I need to figure out where they're going to exploit that game. Essentially, you're like doing the coach's job, or at least trying to be the coach. If you know that another team is really solid on defense, you're going to, take into account that perhaps it's going to take them a half to get that offense rocking and figure out that defense. Those are just kind of things that come from knowing your teams. You can't know the league, but you can know your people.
John, tremendously interesting interview. Your focus, your discipline, the fact that you're so maniacally obsessed with soccer brings so much value to this ecosystem and to your subscribers or anyone who's just trying to get introduced to this wacky world of international soccer. So thank you. You are running a promo along with this interview. So punch in JP DubCast at checkout. You get 25% off your first period. So that's a great way to get introduced to the wacky world of international soccer with kind of the best coach you can have. But beyond that, man, so great listening to your perspective on this and just talking shop.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate everything you guys have done, as well as this interview as well. So thanks a ton, dude.